This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is the Fast Break Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me, as always, I don't know in which direction, so I'm going to point, and hopefully it's the right one. Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
Ricky Widmer.
Wrong direction. What's up, guys?
Ricky, am I in the middle again?
Yeah, you are.
Ricky Widmer.
That's Dave. So Dave. Okay. Dave is to the side you just pointed. I'm always to the other one. So that's always Dave. Okay. That's always me.
All right, cool. All right. See, because I don't know why in the actual Discord call. Yeah, I don't know why in the Discord call
you're always in the middle.
On the far right.
Yeah, it's for you. Like your personal call, you're always going to be on the right. But for me, you're in the middle. You're always in the middle for me.
As you can tell, we are not in the studio. We are still in quarantine, and it's super fun. I'm totally not losing my mind. I love it. And we would say to keep the lights on, donate to patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast, but my mom pays these lights. So maybe just if you want to help support us, check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. But we appreciate everybody that's currently watching us live on twitch.tv/mostvaluablepodcast. Anybody that's watching on YouTube, post fact anyone who's listening on any of those services during this stuff. We hope you guys are safe and healthy. We appreciate you guys listening, and we got a great show for you. We got 2 draft segments. We're going to be doing who should the Knicks and Hornets take, which prospects best fit the Knicks and Hornets. And then also we'll be welcoming Jake for the 3rd annual top 10 player rankings that are totally going to be hunky-dory, and everybody's going to love each other, and we're totally not going to scream at Ricky at how stupid he is. But anyways,
not at all.
Let's jump into the... What?
I said not at all. I'm the smartest one on the podcast. Nostradamus over here, man.
Oh, boy. Anyways, we've done the Detroit Pistons. We've done the Atlanta Hawks. We've done the Minnesota Timberwolves. We've done the Cleveland Cavaliers. We've done the Golden State Warriors. This week, we're going to be doing the New York Knicks and the Hornets on this podcast. If you are a Bulls fan and you're like, where the hell are the Bulls? Go to Superfans. We're doing this after. So if you're live on Twitch, you want to hear what we're going to talk about with the Bulls, stay tuned. Obviously, we got news there as well with their GM stuff. So we'll talk about all of that on Superfans. But let's jump into the Knicks. They currently have the 6th odds in the NBA draft lottery to be top 4. They have 37.2% chance and a 9% chance to get the first overall pick. And I think we're going to do it a little bit different. We've done this before, but it's nothing too crazy. I just want to talk more about the roster and say, what does this team need before we go into which prospects best fit them? Because we have to get this long-term look at what's going to, what's going to be this team next year when we get into the new season. Julius Randle is going to be under contract for $18.9 million. Bobby Portis has a team option for $15.7, so I hope they decline that for their sakes. Taj Gibson has a team option for $10.2. Alfred Payton has it's in italic, so it's not fully guaranteed, an $8 million. 8.2 for RJ Barrett. He's obviously going to be on the team. Wayne Ellington has an 8.1 team option. Frank going to be on the team as well, $6.1 million. He's last year of his deal. Same for Dennis Smith, $5.6 million. Kevin Knox, $4.5 million. Reggie Bullock, non-guaranteed, $4.2. Mitchell Robinson, non-guaranteed, $1.6. I doubt, it'd be shocking if he didn't get that. And then Iggy Brazdeikis, he's got 1.5 as well. So those are the players that are going to be on the roster next year if every option is picked up. But when I read that over, Dave, what's the biggest thing that jumps out? Is it a lack of X? Is it no star? What do you see in this Knicks team, the one that I just read off with Bobby Portis and Julius Randle making a ton of money?
I mean, it's just a lack of talent. All right, there. Now that I've gotten all the Knick haters riled up, I can actually start talking. No, I mean, they have a lot of young pieces on this team, but as far as a guy who can truly run an offense, they're lacking. They've got good utility pieces. It's just not necessarily that one guy who knows how to get the right people involved at the right times. It feels like, Julius Randle seriously is like king of the empty stats, in his time with the Lakers, his time with Pelicans, and now his time in New York. He gets his, but it's never it's never in a way that helps you win games. It feels like it's just frustrating to watch him play his style of bully basketball, and you're not getting wins out of it quite often. I do like, RJ Barrett has seemingly started to come along a little. I got some respect for the Peanut Heads game. He's getting better, but he's not a primary ball handler out there. You need to have someone who can run the offense. For the 8th time, I'm going to mention that. young pieces are interesting. There's always good upside. Like Mo Harkless, I absolutely love the fact that they had him for a couple of games this year after the trade with Marooks. But like, he's someone who I'd love if they could bring back because like he's just a smart veteran. I don't know if he would, but at the end of the day, they need a point guard. Like that's just Frank is a fun piece, great defensive stopper. But he's been given, a couple of short leash tries at being the starting point guard. I mean, ideally, they have a head coach who has a system and a direction and knows how to run an offense. But that's also TBD at the moment. So, yeah, draft-wise, look for point guard. Look for someone who can run an offense, who is very comfortable. And, if you can't get someone who is a master of running the offense, you need to get at least someone who is comfortable being the primary ball handler,
Yeah, and Ricky, with that being said, I don't know if there's anything you want to add on to that, but point guards is obviously the name and game of this draft. That's the best part of this draft. With how many we have, obviously it's going to be possible that they get a point guard. But if unless there's anything else you want to add about the team going in next year, do they need the point guard in your guy Lamelo Ball?
They need all the point guards. Like I feel like this is one where. Well, I mean, I'm not saying that like they need to get multiple point guards. I'm saying that we're like.
So what the fuck does that mean?
If they're the number one pick, yes, yeah. LaMelo Ball's their guy. But even like, let's say they're outside the top three. Like, okay. I think Ball, I think Hayes, I think Cole Anthony, Nico Mannion, Tyrese Halliburton. Any of these guys would be a good pick for them. Any of them. Probably the lowest one in my mind is I'm thinking maybe Tyrese Halliburton, only because he's more of a passer than a scorer to me. But like if you get Halliburton, then maybe he can work with RJ Barrett, and then RJ's your main scorer, and you can kind of have it like where Duke had, where they had Trey Jones was their point guard, but Trey Jones wasn't the guy scoring the bucket. Now, of course, you had Zion and Cam on that team, which also adds a different dynamic, but Cam
wasn't doing shit on that team.
The Knicks are the team that if there's anybody that needs LaMelo Ball, this is the team. And this would be probably, I'm going to say, the best fit for LaMelo. To go to a team with the market like the Knicks, and if he can bring them back to prominence, like, what would that mean for LaMelo? And that would be
talking
great
about
thing
a partial
for him.
Owner of an NBL team there, Ricky.
Yeah, I know. But like this could be the best fit for both Knicks and LaMelo Ball.
He didn't say bye to him, but he said, "I will just buy you all. You guys play for me now."
It was a good move, though. I mean, you got to respect the fact that he was like, "Hey, this is a team that's struggling as far as their money is concerned, and they needed someone to step up and buy them. Otherwise, there was a scare that they might not be a team going forward." So,
I'm not bashing the move. I mean, the guy has money. He wants to spend it on an NBL team. Absolutely, go ahead. But we've been making the running joke that he just walked out on the team, but now he just shows up and being like, "Hey guys, I'm just gonna buy you. You're gonna play for me, and we're gonna be the Australian balls."
What if he just stayed?
He stayed overseas.
he gets drafted by a team he doesn't like, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm just not showing up for you."
He really wants to be a hand-on owner. Yeah, he could be Jaromir Jagr over in the Czech Republic playing for his own team. Let's go and build off of what Ricky said with LaMelo Ball. Obviously, if they're at 6, they're not getting LaMelo Ball, right? No. Right, Dave?
Zero chance.
And I've made the argument that Wiseman might be a better pick for them, but we're not going to get into that just yet. Let's keep on the LaMelo Ball thing. Is it crucial, Dave, that they get the number 1 pick to get LaMelo Ball? Because obviously Ricky's saying he thinks it's a perfect fit. He thinks he's the best point guard in this draft. They need a point guard. How crucial would it be to add the best point guard, a LaMelo Ball, in this draft to the Knicks?
I think it's absolutely insane. I can't think of a team like it's them. Detroit and Chicago are all so desperate for a true point guard. Like it's those 3 in the running, and any one of them who lands lucky enough to get LaMelo would be thrilled. I mean, I seriously think he's got I'm such a LaMelo hater and fanboy at the same time. Like I want to say generational talent because like 6'7" point guard, insane passing ability. And absolutely confidence to take any shot, to have the ball in his hands, to make happen anything you need. Like his personality fits so well in New York. So yes, I think they should obviously, everybody wants to be number one, but it would mean a lot to New York to get someone they could attach onto. And like, he could be the face of like a rebuilding franchise, and him, RJ Barrett, Mitch Robb together would be an awesome, young spooky group, up and coming in the league. And plus then his dad just gets to talk shit New York media all the time. Like, it's wins all around. It's everything you want.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would look at with that team, though, would be, is there a number one scorer? Because obviously Julius Randle can put up great numbers. RJ Barrett has had a nice end of the season, or at least what has been the end of the season so far.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't seen the consistency in his scoring game just yet. And we talk about Lamelo Ball's lack of ability to drive. He's not the best creator. His shot's a little wonky. Like, he can score, but his best ability right now is passing. Ricky, does it worry you that when you look at this team, you have Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, and Lamelo Ball as your three biggest scorers, and then like can you win if those three are your guys that are putting the ball in the hoop most of the time? Because I look at them and I don't know if I see a dangerous scorer out there. Randle can beat up and take advantage of some opportunities, but I don't know if they have a go-to guy that they might be able to build around. I don't know if I'm being too ridiculous with that, especially with how much I loved RJ Barrett, but at least what I've seen so far, I don't know if he's a number one scorer on a team. Do you feel the same way looking at those three, that they might not have a number one scorer?
I feel like the thing that the Knicks would then need, and I don't know if Mike Miller, not that Mike Miller, is the guy for this, but they need to put the right guy in charge to help this team kind of bloom and blossom. Because I feel like, to me, I said that I would take any point guard, and any point guard I'd be happy with. But to me, there's two guys that if I'm the Knicks, I'm targeting from the point guards. And LaMelo's one of them. I think that if you have LaMelo Ball, there's more of an onus on RJ of like, okay, you have to get better. You have to show strides in year two, because you might have to be the main scorer for us. There's a part of me, though, that's like, Killian Hayes might be like, if I'm talking best fit meter, might be equal or just below LaMelo Ball. Because like Killian Hayes, I don't think is on that generational talent that Dave mentioned for LaMelo Ball.
Mm-hmm.
But everything about Killian Hayes' game, his scoring, his assisting, everything that he can do offensively with the ball, might help the Knicks a little bit better in that regard than LaMelo Ball, although I would still take Ball over Hayes. Like, those would be my top two guys.
Is that an insider basketball term, assisting, Ricky? Is that Julian that read that in the book?
Like passing the ball, assisting.
Jerry West used that one in a speech. Assisting.
Facilitating?
Assisting.
Yeah, facilitating maybe. Good pick and roll passer.
Mm-hmm.
I think that something that we should, and I want to at least clear this up because Knick fans are sensitive, like every fan group. But at least what I was saying with RJ Barrett, first 34 games, 38% from the field, 31% from three, 55% from the line, 13.4 points per game, right? And then obviously in the last back half of the year, Basketball Reference doesn't want to work with me right now. In the last half of the year, in the last 22 games, 43% from the field, 33% from three, 68% from the line, and 15.7 points. Right, so he was much better in the latter half of the season. We saw that with like Colin Sexton or Trae Young as well. Like, they had really good second halves, and obviously first couple of games, and with a bad team as well in New York. We shouldn't be writing off RJ Barrett. I want to make sure that we're not writing off RJ Barrett.
He's got to show improvement into year two.
Yeah, I think
like
he's a little bit limited scoring wise, and I think it might just mean that he's not a number one scorer. He might be a number two scorer.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into the Hayes talk though, because he's more in their range, right? I mean, we're thinking LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, James Wiseman are going to be 1, 2, 3, right? So if you're not in those top three, you're not going to have a shot at LaMelo Ball, right? He's going to be gone off the board at that point.
Well, the thing I want to ask then is, and this kind of plays into Hayes, is if the Knicks are 2 or 3. Let's say LaMelo Ball goes number one. Let's say like the Bulls or any team that needs a point guard takes Ball at number one. At 2 and 3, if you're the Knicks, what do? Do you go for that need and go Killian Hayes? Do you trade? Do you just take Wiseman or Edwards? Like, yeah, we know that Ball, Edwards, and Wiseman are 1, 2, 3. But if the Knicks are 2 and 3 and Ball's not there, what do they do?
Well, I think with that, and kind of with this, I just hit Sim on Tankathon. Knicks jump up to 2 and Cleveland's 1, right? I mean, I don't know if Cleveland needs Lamelo Ball,
Point
but
guard,
they do need a facilitator. They need someone to pass the ball. I think that in that scenario, I might then, again, I'm kind of going back on what I was saying a couple weeks ago in my mock draft where I would take Wiseman no matter what. I do think that Anthony Edwards would be interesting there just because I talk about the lack of a number one scorer, and that's what he is. I mean, right now, everything that he can do is a great scorer, and RJ Barrett is still a good enough passer, right? He can facilitate in spurts. So that's something that I don't want to write off on his growth. I just don't think he's had the best team around him. So if he has a better point guard and maybe a more veteran point guard that they could look to sign in the offseason, a guy to run the offense, most of the time, but the other time RJ Barrett can, take it on the wing and go into isolation, try to create for his other, for teammates. I think Anthony Edwards could be a really fun fit next to him. And Edwards does have that defensive potential with his athleticism and with his size. I think also with that RJ Barrett, he's not a 2, he's not a 3, he's just a wing. And that way, Anthony Edwards, I think, can play next to RJ Barrett. So I think that really I wouldn't go away from BPA. I would determine who that is, whether that be Wiseman or Edwards, and take them. I'm not gambling on going away from what my big board says just to fit a need, especially in the NBA draft, especially when I'm the New York Knicks and haven't had a superstar in years. Like I'm not taking that risk. I'm going to take the guy that I think has a higher potential and higher ceiling. If they end up thinking that's Killian Hayes, go ahead and take him. But Dave, I think that if we're in that situation where LaMelo Ball goes number 1, I'm still taking Anthony Edwards or James Wiseman, even if they're not a point guard, because although that's their biggest need, they still have a lot of needs on this team.
I mean, that's true, but if you take a Anthony Edwards, who honestly, the more I'm watching on him, the more I'm kind of souring on him, which has been interesting. But if you take him and he turns out to have too much overlap in his game or in usage with RJ Barrett, it puts you in an interesting situation because you got RJ, who was the number 3 pick the last year, and now you've got a number 2 overall or 3, depending on wherever they landed. And you've got an overlap in the position. You've got an overlap in, the skill set. RJ's a little bit bigger. So hopefully, like you said, he can slide over to the 3 and be comfortable defending threes. Anthony Edwards can be at the 2. But I feel like Edwards would be able to do basically the same thing he's been doing in college, which is the ISO heavy game. And again, that's because this team doesn't have a true point guard. It's even if they didn't take a point guard and, they struck out in free agency and they just kind of had to roll into next year with either Alfred Payton, Frank, or Dennis Smith Jr. at the point, Anthony Edwards could get his. And I think RJ may be able to get his a little on his own now too. But I just go back and I'm is this really how you build a winning team though?
Well,
yeah, I have to wonder if they might want to value. I wouldn't be surprised if on someone's big board that Killian Hayes is above, one of those 2 guys, because I don't know how this team wins games without a point guard. Yes, they can all, score points and you can play ISO basketball, but that's not going to win you shit.
Well, I mean,
I'm just going to jump in here real quick, just because I know that Knick fans might be giving up on him, but I'm not going to give up on him just yet. But Frank Ntilikina, I think, still deserves a shot on this team, and I think there is a lineup there that you could have Edwards, Ntilikina, and Barrett on the floor at the same time at your wings and guard spots. I still think that is a fair enough a lineup. I think that Frank's still a great defender, and I think that he has shown at times that when he does get the opportunities, he can be a decent facilitator. He can be a decent number 1, a decent number 1 guard, and he doesn't need to score. He doesn't need the ball in his hands to be effective. And I think that's exactly what you need next to a guy like, next to guys like Anthony Edwards and RJ Barrett. If, he brings up the ball, a couple times and then the other times are just ISO sets for RJ and Anthony Edwards. I don't know if I hate that, just because those are guys that are going to be a part of your team long-term. And if they're growing and bonding together, then, maybe not in the first 2 years, you're going to see results, but maybe by year 3, you can see a playoff team just because you have RJ Barrett and Anthony Edwards next to each other. And those are 2 guys that can put up 20 a night. Ricky, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, and this is key, where this Knicks team, they have another first-round pick. They have the Clipper pick at 27, and they also have the 38th pick, where I think those two play into what you can do with this one, to where there are guys that, and of course this is going to be where your scouts get their money or make their money, but like, even if you have to reach at 27 and you're like, hey, Cassius Winston's our guy, we're going to go with Cassius Winston. Or if like at 38, this might be a reach depending on how you value him. There's guys like Elijah Hughes. There's guys like Ayo Dosunmu where they could maybe, I think, take the risk of, even if they don't go Edwards and they say, you know what, we're going to roll the dice on Wiseman at 2, they could at 27 and 38 get a guy who they can mold into the point guard, get a guy that they can mold into a specific need that they have on this team if they scout it well.
Yeah, and people were, yelling at me in the comments. I forget which one it was, but they were like, "Oh, you've seen 3 games of Wiseman, and you're already falling in love, acting like he's the next big thing." Like, yeah, I mean, he's so far in those 3 games, he has stood out more than Anthony Edwards and Lamelo Ball.
Retro.
Plus, you have all the highlights from him previously. You have his high school highlights. You have the AAU. You have all the tourney game. Yeah.
Plus, he's 7'1" and super athletic. Like, it's tough not to fall in love with him. Jesus Christ, sorry, I'm falling in love with a freak. But yeah, no, I mean, in that plan laid out, I don't think that going Wiseman at 2 or 3 or wherever there, and then going and getting Cassius Winston at 27 is a bad idea. I mean, he's in some ways he is that veteran point guard that I was talking about a little bit earlier. Let's get out of the top 3 just a little bit, and let's get into where they are right now. What's up?
One quick thing. Sorry to step away for a minute there. Someone's at my door. But Frank did have his best game of his career, arguably, like literally the game before his last game. Yeah, he put up 10 with 2 steals, 2 assists. Like, he actually was fire that game.
And I don't want to give up on him, because I still think that
either, but
he deserves time to grow. He's still somewhat young. He's only going to be 22 at the start of next season. It turns 22 July 28th. Like, I mean, I still think he deserves time to find out what he can do with this body, because that Washington game was fantastic, and there's still times that in these games that he's shutting down their best player. I mean, he still has that defensive knack to him. Again, I'm gonna talk up, and I'm gonna try to put it out there that Frank Ntilikina deserves to be on the Dallas Mavericks, and I think they turned him into a star. Anyways,
I love it.
Let's go away from the top 3 unless there's anything else. I think we've covered. What if they get top 3? They're gonna go Lamelo Ball if he's gone. We talked about Edwards and Wiseman. Let's just get into that 6 part. Obviously, Hayes is a guy that we mentioned. Dave, what do you think about Killian Hayes on the Knicks?
I think he does exactly what they need him to do. He's not an uber ball dominant guard. He can play off ball. He can shoot. He can score from all 3 levels. The real big knack on his game is, the left-hand dominance, and that's something that, yes, is going to slow you down, but he's also so young. Like, it's something he can work on finishing with his right. He can work on driving right, not, stopping short and having to go for like pull-up shots. It's a small piece to his game that's just very noticeable. But outside of that, like, he does a little bit of everything they need him to do. He can run on offense. He's confident for a young kid out there. So I would absolutely be happy landing Killian Hayes if I were the Knicks. Yeah.
All right, Ricky, Killian Hayes. Obviously, he's a guy that I don't know if he's everyone's number 2 point guard. Do you think that there is a world that they possibly go away from him? And if they do go away from Killian Hayes, if Lamelo Ball is not available, which guard do you think that they go after and try to get?
Yeah, I don't think so. Unless Hayes is taken before them, I don't think they go away from Killian Hayes. It's one of those where, I think it was even mentioned in our Discord, patreon.com/mostofallpodcast, shameless plug, where someone had mentioned, man, like Killian Hayes, I think it might have been Demon, like, man, Killian Hayes is really on a rise. Like one of the questions in our Discord was, is he really a top 5 player in this draft? Just because of I feel like him and Denny have both recently been rising up draft boards to where, like, now Denny's like you look at Tankathon, boom, number 3 to the T-Bulls. Killian Hayes, number 6 right now. Some people have him in the top 5, to where I feel like in most people's big boards, it's going to be LaMelo Ball, Killian Hayes, and then everyone else. I think which helps that also is that Tyrese Halliburton, last thing we saw and heard of him was a wrist injury, and we still don't know or have seen how he's coming back from that because of everything going on. You've got Cole Anthony, who had not a great season. That's me putting it politely, at UNC. So having these, and now obviously Nico Mannion not being as strong as I thought he would be this season, I think all that coming in, people are like just looking for a clear number two, and they're kind of going off of what Dave said. Hey, he's young and he's moldable, to where it's like, because he's so young, we're not getting a final product and I can get the most out of him.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be a fresh 19 when the season starts. He turns 19 July 27th. And then he's 6'4", 215. He's got decent size already for him for a 19-year-old. And you look at what he's been doing over in the Euro Cup. I'm not going to try to pronounce his team name. I could hear it a million times, and I just know that that's something that's not in my arsenal. But he's a guy that is so far. What's up?
I'm going to say Ratio Farum. I know that's wrong, but that's what I'm going to say.
It's quite wrong.
I can't even correct you. But at least what we've seen so far is he's been massively efficient as an 18-year-old. He's very good in the pick and roll, and he might be limited defensively, but he just seems like he is a natural basketball player, and that's what I really like about him. When he goes up and he gets challenged at the rim, he does try to find a way to get around it and still score. He is a very aggressive player, and I do like that. And he is coming from as well. His background is his dad's a former pro. That's why he is currently over in France right now. He was born in Lakeland, Florida. His dad played at Penn State, then went professional overseas in France. He is a guy that I think that there is a little bit, and I know this is a little bit crazy, but like that's what Kobe did, and we see what Kobe did years, and nobody had Kobe's mindset. But like I'm just saying, like he might be one of those guys that like this is what he's been doing for his entire life, right? And that's just such a good sign that all right, he has grown up in a professional mindset. He has grown up in a professional environment consistently. He's been around his dad time and time again. Even Steph Curry. I mean, if we just want to go into an American thing, like these guys that grow up around basketball, like it just seems like they understand the game even when the game starts to challenge them, and they can rise to those occasions even when the game starts to challenge because they've seen it their life. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's going to be Steph Curry or Kobe Bryant, but I'm just saying like we've seen time and time before that sometimes when these guys, especially the ones that have professional father athletes, when they go about it the right way, they can truly use it to their advantage. Killian Hayes could be one of those players. I think that's why we're seeing a rise. You're seeing him just without that background play so well and grow immensely over his past couple of, even throughout this year, he's grown. But especially having that extra mindset, I think is something that will help him in his professional career. I think it's just an advantage that I think is worth throwing out there. So I love Killian Hayes. I think he can fit really any team.
I do wonder here if you are the Knicks and you start to have some flashbacks from that Frank and Dennis Smith Jr. class, and you're like, well, we've got the French prospect who looks really good. He's got clearly visible upsides to his game. He's still so young. We can work with him. We can do whatever. But also, there's this explosive athlete in Cole Anthony who is a hometown kid who just makes amazing plays happen. He plays with such aggression, such drive, and you see the passion out there. And you're like, man, that kid just balls. And it's just like, which one are they going to go for? Do you wonder if they're going to question it?
And David, I think it's hilarious that you bring that up, just because where Killian Hayes was playing his 2 prior years was in the LNB Pro A. Who's from the LNB Pro A?
Yeah, that's Frank
Ntilikina. And Cole Anthony playing at UNC. Dennis Smith Jr., an ACC kid. So I love seeing all those connections. The Cole Anthony thing, though, like let's talk about him, because it kind of makes a lot of sense. We can even do the whole thing with him as well. Like growing up around professional athletes, his dad's Greg Anthony. Everybody knows Greg Anthony. I mean, former basketball player, obviously current color commentator for I think NBA TV. Greg Anthony, he grew up around the NBA his entire life as well. But I think the biggest thing that it worries me with Cole is I don't think I've seen that growth, right? We can look at Killian Hayes and we could see over the past 3 years, he's gotten stronger, faster, better, smarter, aggressive, craftier, right? Cole Anthony, I haven't seen that. I didn't see that jumping off the page when I was watching him against at UNC. And obviously it was up and down, didn't have the greatest team around him. So I don't want to write Cole Anthony off, but it worries me at a guy who is supposed to be a number one scoring guard when you can't finish around the rim against, college level competition. That's my biggest worry with Cole Anthony.
But I would counter that with the fact that when you go back and watch a lot of the games, it's just the paint was so packed. He wasn't driving 1-on-1. It was 1-on-3, 1-on-4 men in the paint, because literally the defense could just turn and key in on him, and you would see him dribble and it would just be eyes at him. Like they were near another person, yes, but like when he drives, the whole team just collapsed, and they didn't have spacing, so they were playing with, two bigs in the paint already when he's driving into the lane. So like the situation was not set up to do him any favors. If you want to watch, like I will give you the credit though, like his progression of game is not, it's not linear. Like you don't see the fact that like, oh, as time's gone on, he's gotten better. You see the high school like mixtapes, you see what he was able to do in the circuits, and then you see him in college, and it feels like the same. He's playing the same style of game. He hasn't really changed a ton in the way he approaches basketball, it seems. I'm sure there's some smaller stuff that he's definitely done to improve his game. And
plus, he had an injury too, I think, this year, right?
He was what?
He had an injury too that took
yes.
him out.
He did. It's like that's definitely something to consider. The fact that he hasn't evolved, his game hasn't evolved over time with him. But again, still so young. And if you want just proof of what he could be, like his first game was just a coming out party. He just dumpstered Notre Dame on his own. It was just like, holy shit.
Well, and I do just because you brought that up, like the finishing aspect. I think the Stephian wrote a great in their scouting report. They addressed his finishing. I want to give a shout out to Spencer Perlman who wrote it up, and there's a whole like just paragraph about his finishing. And they give clogged paint examples, exactly like you're saying. But he says finishing hasn't been good in college, but I think it'll be solid based on his high school / AAU film, where he had vertical pop and strength to finish through opposing rim protectors. Cole was only 8 of 27 in the HC, excluding post-ups and putbacks on the offensive glass, which is bad, and only 5 of 19 out of isolation and pick and roll. And just HC, just for people, it's the heat chart, and it's just literally in the circle, in the restricted area right around the rim. But he said, while he didn't finish well in the paint and missing passing lanes, it wasn't entirely his fault. UNC spacing has been very poor all year long, shooting around 29.4% from three on the year. So, I mean, and go read this whole write-up, and you can get exactly what Dave's talking about with the crowded paints and all that stuff. The question I have to ask you then, why not Cole Anthony over Killian Hayes if you think that won't be an issue finishing? And is it because of you think there will be lack of spacing with the Knicks?
I mean, that there is lack of spacing with the Knicks. That's one of the biggest problems. I love Mitchell Robinson. He is just an old. He has that old school of like he plays low post. He's uber athletic though, so like I have no doubt that he is going to work on a shot, but it's just not there right now. Julius Randle, same thing. Like he plays bully ball. He's shitty Zion Williamson. Like that is my that was, we joked about the comp coming in, and I'm gonna joke about it now. But like similar style, his fucking spin move just annoys the shit out of me. He takes poor shots, but he doesn't add efficient spacing. And again, maybe a head coach who runs offensive systems would get more productivity and have the space laid out better. But the way the Knicks have been set up to play this year, it's just what we saw out of them. Kevin Knox honestly has been he could be a moldable anything, and he's a moldable nothing. Like, I'm not giving up on him yet, but he hasn't shown us anything yet. There's no consistency to his game. He's been benched, he's been a starter, he's been everything in between. His minutes have been all over the place, which I'm sure doesn't help him build any confidence, but still, he was a raw product coming out and wasn't molded. So like, I understand the concern about getting someone, unless you are confident in your coaching staff and your training staff. Like, if you have confidence there, I would feel confident going Killian Hayes, because he's someone who I feel like he would thrive with great coaching, great staff to work around him. But I feel like Cole Anthony is the guy you can pick, and Cole Anthony seems to be Cole Anthony, regardless of what you put around him. He's going to play his style of basketball. So you just have to know if you can win doing that, and with the spacing that's laid out around him, I think it's still questionable. They've got a lot of interesting wing players who can shoot, but it all seems to be ISO. It doesn't seem to be catch and shoot style players. So I don't know. It's tough to say that there's a reason to go Cole Anthony over Killian Hayes for the Knicks, but I totally see the argument there.
The question you have to answer is RJ Barrett your one? We've had debates on this podcast with several different guys. The one that became the one that I go back to is the Sean and I debate of is Jimmy Butler a one? And the Knicks need to decide, is RJ Barrett your number one? Is he your number one scorer, your leader on this team? Because that plays into it. If he is, Killian Hayes is your guy. Killian Hayes is a guy who can be your number two. He can facilitate and get RJ his points. He can get other people involved. If not, and LaMelo's not there, Cole Anthony's your guy. Because Cole Anthony, I think, if I'm going off of the guy factor and like being the main guy and the number one guy, it's LaMelo, Cole Anthony. Although that doesn't feed into actual rankings, like Cole Anthony has that in him to where it's like, fuck it, I'm going to be the guy to lead this team. It's just the fact of, can the Knicks get that out of him? And can he flourish in New York? Which I think he can, but yet again, it decides of, and it falls into who is going to be their coach moving forward after this year.
Yeah, and obviously, that's an unknown right now. And I think, at least to talk about the RJ Barrett thing briefly, I think it's too early to tell. You didn't even get a full season out of him with the right roster. And that was a better player in a better draft. I think that RJ Barrett deserves more of a shot to carve out his future in New York. So I think Killian Hayes makes more sense, not only because I like him more as a player, but also just because I think that he helps RJ Barrett grow more into that guy more than a Cole Anthony would.
And that's the decision that the Knicks are going to have to make. The one that you just made, that's what the Knicks are going to have to do.
Final thoughts here. We could talk if you want to bring up anybody that, what their strategy should be if they, get, the 6th pick and the 27th. Obviously, they're still going to have the Clipper pick. If there's a strategy like, point guard big or point guard wing, what strategy should they look at with both first round picks? Ricky, I'll go to you first because you talked about it a little bit. Obviously, the idea if they miss out on Lamelo Ball, they could take Wiseman and then get Cassius Winston at 27. What's your kind of game plan? What positions are you looking to address at least with your first two? With your two first round picks. There we go. Go Bears.
I mean, with me, the first thing I'm doing is I'm scouting all the point guards. And I'm figuring out who's my guy. Because if I scout them all and I go, hey, I really fucking like Cassius Winston. He's my guy. I'm not saying that he is. I'm just saying, hypothetically, I'm throwing a name out there. You can sit there and go, well, I can get that at 27. And then you can use that to say, okay, who should I scout in the top 10, depending on where I go. 1 through 3 is easy. You scout between either Wiseman or Edwards. But, like, if they fall between 4 and I think what's the farthest they can fall, 9, 8 or 9, you could see them potentially go Obi Toppin. You could see them go Denny Abdia. I'll throw out Big O, Onyeka Okongwu. Like, if they feel like, hey, we're going to get that point guard later, they could go with one of those guys and scout them. So I would scout the point guard, figure out whether I'm going to use that with my first or my second first rounder, and then scout whatever next position for whichever part of the draft that I'm at with the second guy that I need.
Dave, I mean, I think there's kind of a clear need that they need wings. Is there any wings late in the draft that you think, or late in the first, that you think could be fairly interesting to add to this team?
There are. It just depends on what they're looking for, and it depends on who's bored late in the first round. Because I've seen that's serious. Like, I've seen Patrick Williams anywhere from a pick. I think on Tankathon he's like 28, which seems to be ridiculous because our internal consensus is he's somewhere between 17 and 10. So it's if you get someone like him that late, absolutely take him. Sadiq Bey, another guy who I've seen kind of all over the place, anywhere from I think 15 to 30. Same thing. Like, add spacing, add someone who can continue to help your team. Paul Reed would be an interesting pickup for them as well. I think he's mobile, he can defend, he can shoot. There's a lot of good things around that. Jalen Smith, maybe. I don't know. I kind of want to bounce back a quick question though and ask if they were at 5 or say they're at like 6 or 7,
Mm-hmm.
and you're staring down and you go, would I pass on a point guard for Obi Toppin? Like, would you pass on Killian Hayes or Cole Anthony for Obi Toppin at the top of this draft if you are the New York Knicks?
I think the only wing that I'd be picking outside of guard would be Denny.
Okay.
And that's just because I think he fits more of the timeline that you're on. Mitchell Robinson, Frank, RJ, these guys are still young, right? And I don't want to add Obi Toppin, who's going to be 26 when this contract's up, onto this team. I'd rather take a shot at Cole Anthony, who's going to be 19, or Killian Hayes, who's 19. Same with like Nico Mannion, if you want to stretch it out, or Tyrese Maxey. Like I'd rather get a guy that will grow with my team.
Okay.
Still be fairly young, because I don't know what this core is going to look like at the end of in 5 years. We might not even the Knicks might still have their guy, and that's the issue. So I would rather have younger guys that might still be able to be around for 10 years rather than Obi Toppin, who might be out of the league. And
I would say yes, and I with an asterisk where if I feel like I can find my point guard at 27 or use 27 and 38 to move up a little bit to get that guy, like if I'm confident in that, then yeah, I would use my 6th overall pick on Obi.
Yeah, I'm wondering, because I think Obi could be an intriguing prospect. If Killian's off the board, I would consider it.
Why do you think he's interesting?
He seems like he's got the base skills to succeed at the NBA. He's got good athleticism, good wingspan, good bounce. Like everything about his game seems like it's going to translate decently well. And I would just wonder if you go for the surefire guy who's going to be able to succeed. And that way you can move on from Julius Randle and you have someone who can be like a de facto go-to guy on that team, as a wing scorer for the future. I mean, it's just, it's an interesting thought. And again, you still are hoping that, again, those later picks can contribute to a point guard of the future, or that Frank will be able to step up and continue to add pieces to his game like he's been able to. So it was just the name Obi Toppin in New York I've seen bounced around on a couple forums before, and I was like, I mean, at what point would you take him if he was still there versus the point guard need at the top? Because
it makes sense. I mean, he was born in New York too, and he ended up playing some high school ball in New York as well. So I mean, it's not the craziest thing. He is from Brooklyn, so he probably grew up a Nets fan, like most people in New York did. That was a joke. Sorry that I can't. Brooklyn Nets being the most popular team in New York. But yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense. Being from there and having roots from there, I think New York people could get behind that. And I think we did gloss over the fact that really outside of the 5 and the 2, they could take anybody. So I mean, they have positions and needs everywhere. So if they
I could see him take a Big O, even
yeah,
it could be interesting. I mean, him and Mitch Rob, ain't nobody driving in the paint.
Yeah, it's too much defense though. No spacing.
No offense, no spacing.
I think Wiseman might be able to end up in the future providing a little more spacing. But Knick fans, you are vocal, you are loud. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. I don't know if there's any Twitch stuff going on that we should address, but at least if you're listening and watching on YouTube, let us know what you think down in the comments below. I bet our guy Easy is popping off in the Twitch chat right now.